welcome back to the Fenway Focus. My name is Derek. I am here with Jason. As always, this is episode 25 of the Fenway Focus. We have a lot to talk about. We missed our weekend episode. We may or may not have partied a little bit too hard from the Celtics winning, but not necessarily. But there was a lot going on, including the Celtics winning the NBA Finals. So we did not have a weekend show. That means you had an extra jam-packed midweek show, though, from us, as we not only have one series to cover with the Blue Jays series, we also have two, considering we also have to cover the Yankees series. So kind of a whole week of recap, kind of dating back to this past weekend with the Yankees. And
You're welcome.
Yeah. So we have a lot to get into, but we'll start off with that Yankees series where the Red Sox took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. I don't even remember what our predictions were. So
you said 2 out of 3. I said 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
I think
I picked the corner games though. I think I picked the end games. I picked games 1 and 3. They did win game 3, but they won game 2 and not game.
I remember I just said Sunday.
Yeah. So we both got Sunday right. You know, I'll take the 2 out of 3. I'll take credit for that. And then the Red Sox obviously slept the Blue Jays. First Yankees series. The Red Sox may or may not have exposed the Yankees. I think that's the first thing we were going to talk about. Jason, what are your thoughts on that Yankees series? And then the Red Sox obviously just being menaces to Jose Trevino.
I mean, look, there's a lot to take out of the first game, I guess. 8-1 loss. I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated with Bayo. Bayo has an ERA of 5 now. Luis Gil was that. You predicted it correctly. I mean, he could have a good start, but he's bound to have a bad start coming up. And I know, fast forward to the present, he had a terrible start. But remember, this game was capitalized by the Verdugo home run in the first inning, where he rounded the bases and celebrated like it was the World Series.
Yeah.
So, game 1 had a lot of Sox fans down. The place was just filled with Yankee fans at Fenway Park, which is just disgraceful. I just hate it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible look, too, considering Boston's supposed to be this big market, one of the most supportive fan bases, and then your stadium gets invaded by Philly fans, and then Yankees fans. It's not the greatest look for that narrative.
Exactly. And then you go into game 2. Okay, better win. Kind of a gritty win in a way. They got on Rodon early. Rodon's ERA went up to 3.28 after that. Jansen got the save, Slayton got the win. Then you go to the game. I'm like, okay, solid win. Let's see if they can do it on Sunday. Lo and behold, Sunday Night Baseball, they get the job done. 9-3. They got up, or the Yankees, Judge homered early, and then the Sox turned it up in the second inning, and then the third inning, the fifth inning, they scored runs. 7th, they broke it wide open, and the 8th as well. I liked what I saw out of the hitting and the pitching. Crawford was decent. I mean, nothing too bad. Pitched a quality start, 6 innings, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. I like to see the strikeouts back up from where they were. His ERA is now down to 354. Like that a lot. Bullpen was okay. Bernardino had a shaky start appearance, but other than that, they kind of did expose the Yankees. Their strength has been both starting, pitching, and hitting. After the 8-1 win, they only scored 7 combined runs. And the Sox pitchers just were really good.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, also, too, they abused Marcus Stroman and Jose Trevino. Just straight abused them. And I think that the playbook might be out now, thanks to the Red Sox and them stealing 9 bases, which was a franchise record.
Yep. I was going to get to that.
Yeah, and then 4 of those stolen bases uh, were from David Hamilton. 2 of them from Jaron Duran. Dom Smith had one. Rafaela had one. And Bobby Dahlbeck also had one. Ruff Snyder was caught stealing, so um, being the one guy to be caught stealing, that's kind of gonna suck. I'm not gonna lie. Um, Especially when Dom Smith and Bobby Dahlbeck steal base. I know uncontested with like the Dom Smith one was like no throw because runners on first and third. I get it, but still. Um, but overall, no, they overall the Red Sox they really kind of they they prove that they can win games in different ways, and we'll get to a little bit in the Toronto series with the kind of power surge they had. But this is a Red Sox team that this offense is now going, and they're really starting to turn the corner as a team offensively. It's not just one guy getting hot and carrying the team for a couple games, or they have one massive game like the 17-run game, and then they couldn't score for like the next 2 weeks. Uh, its offense is starting to become consistent and in a good way, and I think that's a massive thing for the Red Sox. Big picture, obviously, you look at like the last 15 days or so. Emmanuel Valdez has been one of the best hitters in baseball. Cesar Rafael has been really good. Rafael Devers has just been steady, Raffy, just continuing to do what he does. And that's a good thing. And I mentioned this on the Pesky report. No one's out of this whole offense. No one's talking about Devers on this team. No one's talking about Devers, but that's a good thing. That's not because it's always with Raffy. It's always the offense is good, but it's not $300 million good, or the defense is struggling or whatnot. There's been none of that this year. The defense has been good. The offense has been consistent, and I think that's the big thing for him. The less noise there is about Raffy, probably the better. Because and also too, look at what everyone else. David Hamilton. Look what he's doing. Jaron Duran. I mean, the guy should be up there for an All-Star voting, but Red Sox fans don't like to vote, so that's a totally different point.
Vote like
but,
5 times a day, or 5 times a day. No one does.
Yeah, but the Red Sox fans don't. But and you've seen like differences. Dom Smith although it hasn't been great, is having some decent at bats here and there, and that's big because a lot of times when Bobby Dahlbeck's in there, a lot of times you goes up kind of 3-4 pitch at bat, and like that's kind of it. So it's nice to see Dom Smith having some good at bats as well. So overall, this is a team that they are being more consistent on the offensive side of things, and the pitching has been consistent as well. It's not the absolute dominance you saw in the beginning of the season. That was never going to last. But Tanner Houck had an amazing start, and he was like, and it was like, oh, my stuff was flat. I mean, amazing. He had a very solid start. And then he's like, oh, yeah, my stuff was flat. And it's like, but he's still, I think that was the Blue Jays series, but still, like, it's the point I'm making, though, of like, Houck's been consistently your best pitcher all year. Nick Pavetta's starting to become a little bit more consistent coming off the injured list. Bayo, although not the greatest start, had to work through it, but outside of the 2 runs in the 4th inning, didn't give up anything in that Toronto start, right? So overall, he kind of starting to get a little bit more consistent too from the pitching staff. And I know Bayo didn't have the greatest start against the Yankees. That being the one game the Yankees really hit in this series.
I'm starting to get frustrated with him. I don't know if it's you, but like recently, I'm like, yeah, come on, Bayo, just grow up, pitch. Just don't. I mean, I get your frustration, but like, figure it out. I know he's a good pitcher. He's young, but I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like, is he young and developing? Yeah. Is this a growing pain? Yes.
I think, though, it could also be a factor of him putting too much pressure on himself, especially with the extension. And also, too, Red Sox fans need to kind of lower their expectations, too, because I think Red Sox fans are expecting him to be this ace. You know how...
I mean, I'm not, but like when you have...
No, I'm not saying you
5,
are, but like in general.
Yeah. Okay.
In general, people have been expecting him to be the ace. Has he been kind of... Has he done as bad as the numbers look? No, I think he's definitely been kind of gypped a little bit in terms of some of the statistics. Like, now a big part of him struggling is leaving pitches over the middle of the plate. That's been a massive problem with the sinker, and that's why they stopped throwing the fastball because it was getting hit last year, and a lot of times he left it over the plate. This year, it's the sinker that's getting killed, and he's leaving it over the middle of the plate. If you look at the heat map, it's pretty much right middle of the plate, right? And I think that's been an issue for him this year. And then because he's also throwing the sinker a little bit more because he's scrapped the fastball, um, there's also that too. But like you look at the sinker, like 344 batting average against, but only expected batting average of 276, right? That's still not good, but like 276 expected batting still isn't good, but it's better than the 344 hitters are actually doing against it, right? Same thing kind of for the expected slugging. 516 slugging against, only a 418 expected slugging against his sinker. So still not good, but that's still better than what has happened, right? So yeah, he's probably due for some whatever the opposite of regression to the mean would be, progression to the mean maybe, because 483 ERA, he has a 458 FIP, but he's got a 396 SIERA, so I think that's very telling in that sense. And then also too, um, eh, he has walked more guys in terms of walks per nine. The walk rate has jumped up, but it's not like crazy from 6.7% to 8.6%. So it's not like insane, but like you would like to see the walks get back in check. A lot of times you see him having long innings, and I think that's a big thing for him. But also it's command. You got to throw can't throw the sinker over the plate. And a lot of the times, at least to my memory, when he's throwing the sinker over the plate, it's in an account that he's behind. He's behind in the count, throws a sinker, it leaks out over the plate, and then what happens, right? Can't make those mistakes against big leaguers. And the thing with Bayo, everyone's he's going to blossom, be an ace. Bayo's still only 25. Like there's not this rush to make him an ace or whatnot. I know he got an extension, but his extension isn't like massive, massive, massive money. It's like it's good money, but it's not like you're the next like great
And
pitcher the Red Sox have
Sox
produced.
fans saying the extensions of failure are just delusional because half the reason you put these extensions in place is because, the money's spread out over long periods of time. Like he's making league minimum this year, and then like next year's gonna be making like 1 million. The reason you do that stuff is to buy out a couple of free agent years and to also buy. How do I explain this? You do it because A, you believe in the guy, and B, is it a lot of money now? Yeah. But what he could become, it could look like a bargain if
Yeah,
he
and
makes
also
this.
to, and
His
also
value is
too.
going to go up, and if you have that set price, it's going to look like a bargain for a while. And I mean, look at the Braves.
I'll make this argument too with Bayo. His last year on the deal is just over 19 million. That's not the club option year. The club option year is at 21 million. 21 million even now is like a number 3 starter in free agency.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? In one of those years, 2029 and 2030, that might be a number 4 starter in
You
those
never know.
years, right? So the fact that like that deal is absolutely worth it, right? It's just we can't put. Also, I say this about prospects all the time on the Pesky Report, and this is why I'm going to bring it up now. Player development's not always linear. You can't expect Bayo to just continue a steady like trajectory because his rise was so quick, right? So if you keep expecting to go up, 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 you're going to get to a point where like it's not going to continue like that. He's going to hit a bump in the road, or he's going to have he's going to stop. It's going to stagnate, and then it might jump. You might have an exponential jump followed by a stagnation, followed by more kind of ongoing, maybe followed by another jump after the fact, right? You look at Marcelo Meyer, right? He started off very well, very good trajectory, gets hurt, stagnates, comes back this year, and he's jumped back up again, right? And that's the kind of thing where with guys, with players, you got to take it. You can't just say, oh, this guy's on an upward trajectory. This guy's going to be the ace next year. You can't just say that about a 25-year-old. Would you love for him to be an ace? Yes. Would I like for him to be an ace? Yes. Going into the season, did I look at Brian Bayo as probably the Red Sox best starting pitcher out of the guys they had available? Yeah. But that doesn't mean, just because he's the best, doesn't mean he's going to be an ace caliber pitcher. And I think that's kind of the, that's the kind of, what's the word? I think kind of the expectations of Red Sox fans get too extreme because Red Sox do it with players that struggle. Someone struggles and their value to a lot of Red Sox fans tanks. Someone plays very well, their value shoots up like a rocket, and now their perceived value by fans is way higher than it actually is.
Right. And
We've
the other
seen it
thing
with
is too.
we've seen it
The
with
other thing
Tristan
is too.
Casas when he struggled. We've seen it with Michael Chavis when he was amazing for the first 2 months of his career. Bobby Dahlbeck even, right? We've seen it before.
Right. And the other thing is people are like, oh, why is Crawford and why is Houck like emerging this year? They were in the big leagues before Bayo. They've had time to figure it out. They've been optioned multiple times over those course of those years. They've had their things to work on, and now they finally put those skills, they put everything they learned together, and now they're really good. Bayo has been in the league for, I mean, if you count 2022, this is his second full year.
Second full season, yeah.
And
in
first,
2022,
one of his
he was
first
only
full seasons.
he was only
remember,
brought
in
up.
2023, he got hurt a little bit.
Yeah. Well, in 22, he got hurt. He got called up out of necessity, pitched a little bit,
and he got optioned last year.
Mm-hmm. It's they're in this thing with Bayo too, where he also made, and that's a massive adjustment to stop throwing your fastball, right? He threw it 20% of the time last year. Was his fastball bad last year? Yes, it was. It got killed last year. 646 slugging against, and even a 559 expected slugging against. His fastball was not good at all, right? Under any circumstances, was not good. But I think last year the sinker wasn't great, but it was better than what it was this year. Last year, his sinker, 278 batting average against, 285 expected batting average, 435 slug, 431 expected slug against, right? The sinker isn't this. It's not great, but if you look at the expected numbers this year, the expected numbers are similar to last year in terms of, expected batting average against 276 compared to last year. The actual batting average is 278. Expected was 285 last year. This year, expected slugging against his sinker 418. The actual slugging last year was 435. Expected slugging 431. So the sinker hasn't necessarily been worse in terms of result. I think, like I said, I think he's been a little unlucky at times with the sinker. I think that's one thing. And then also, too, do I think he should probably throw a sinker a little bit less? Yeah, I think that he could very well go a little bit more changeup or slider heavy. We've seen it before with Luis Perales is a perfect example because he's in the Red Sox system. Last year, in 2023, he threw his fastball over 60% of the time. It was like 64% of the time or something like that. And then this year, he was only throwing it like 23% of the time. And he was having massive success even while doing that. And it's not like he had a bad fastball either. He had a very good fastball. And he was throwing it more than 60% of the time, and hitters still couldn't hit it, right? But I think you don't have to always throw your fastball. I think with Bayo, if he threw the sinker a little bit less, maybe it could also too, but I think also does also go back to the fact of being in bad counts too. I think that's a big thing for Bayo this year. He needs to get ahead early, and then he can work, right? When he gets behind, gets traffic on the bases, and starts to go down 2-1, 3-1 to hitters, 2-0, that's where he starts to run into trouble, I think, the most. And I think that's the thing for Bayo. He needs to be, I think, if you're Bayo, you need to be a little bit more aggressive getting ahead in the count at times. Because I think that's also been kind of a killer for him.
Yeah. It's a work in progress, but we'll see. We'll see with him. Hopefully he can have a bounce back start against the Reds, which we'll get into later. That's all I got from the Yankee series, though.
Yeah,
stolen bases, big. But there's one more point I wanted to make. Alex Cora he's always said, give me speed. I like to work with speed. He's finally given that speed with David Hamilton, Jarren Duran, Cedon Rafaela. Guys capitalized by that. Look where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
He's always wanted it. Now he's got it. David Hamilton is so weird. Who the heck would have expected this? No Red Sox fan would have expected this. Unless you have a crystal ball that's always right. It's a crystal ball. If you have a crystal ball that said David Hamilton was going to have a breakout year.
Yeah.
But how much of that's BABIP luck, though?
I mean, Duran's a BABIP guy, though.
Duran's always been a BABIP guy.
Yeah, but that's because of his speed, right?
Right.
So I don't think it's necessarily. It depends on the player, right? So for reference, Jarren Duran this year has a 351 BABIP. That's actually down from last year. Last year he had a 381 BABIP. Over his entire big league career, he's got a 348 BABIP. David Hamilton this year has a 373 BABIP. Is that a little high? Probably. But at the same time, you also have to look at it too. With his speed, he legs out some infield singles, right? And whatnot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, is there a little bit of BABIP luck there? Yeah, probably. But it's not. He's going to be a BABIP guy, kind of like Duran, in that sense. Because when the hits are falling, like, he's going to be great. But the ball falls. The other thing, too, I do want to go back to Bayo really quickly. Because I just thought about this. I wonder if him trying to throw a front hip sinker more often is what's hurting him. Because if you look at his heat map, he has this zone like middle of the plate, but kind of like down, kind of lower third almost, which is where he was throwing it last year. But now he has a secondary circle that's like a front hip sinker to a lefty, but that zone is leaked out a little bit over the plate. So I wonder if it's that too. Because Bayo didn't really throw front hip sinkers last year, and this year he has, but he either seems to miss inside or sometimes it leaks out over the plate, and I wonder if that's also a thing too. But I'm just hypothesizing, right? I'm not a pitching guru or anything. I'm just hypothesizing over even the somewhat limited information that is even available to the public. The Red Sox, they as a team have way more information than any of us do. So, but I'm just, like I said, hypothesizing. Outside of that, though, what do we want to talk about? Tanner Houck and just how incredible he's been, because he had another solid start in Toronto. Probably might be one of his worst starts of the season, but even then, still only gave up 2 earned.
1 bad inning.
Yeah.
Or wait, no, did they change the Valdez thing to an error?
Yeah, they changed it to an error.
Oh, okay.
So he only gave up 2 earned.
So it was only 2 earned. Okay. So yeah, 1 bad inning. Right? And like, if we're saying this is Tanner Houck's worst start, like, oh my God. Like, this guy, the ace of the future, like, now you're going to go back and wish you maybe have extended him. But I mean, look, is this legit? Hopefully. But like, you also don't really want to make the same mistake as you did Matt Barnes. I'm not saying Matt Barnes and relievers are very volatile, but Houck, I mean, 2 very different guys. But the trap you ran in with Matt Barnes is he was really good out of the pen. Then you give him an extension, and he sucked ever since.
Matt Barnes, though, also had that one really good year, and like that was it. There was also that. With Houck, they're not going to just jump to an extension with Houck, and even if they do, it's different because he's not like getting close to free agency.
Right.
Like that's the difference. Houck entering this year had basically 2 years of service time. He will be ARB eligible after this year, but that's still
Ford. Is he a Super 2?
No, he was league. It was renewal this year, and then he's so pre-ARB. Just pre-ARB this year. Next year he's ARB eligible. So next year, but you still have 3 years after this year before he hits free agency. So they very well could they sign him to an extension? Yes, but it's a different type of extension. Whereas like a Matt Barnes, if I remember, he was like getting close to free agency, or he was like going to be a free agent.
He was on a contract year. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also a different situation as well. And they might not give him an extension. They might. You also got to think too. Houck, he's 27 right now. He turns 28 on June 29th. So he turns. So he'll turn 28 this year. Then next year he'll turn 29, and that's in 2025. And then in 2026 he turns 30. Then in 2027 he turns 31. He won't be a free agent until he's 31. And once you hit 31, you're kind of peaking. You've already kind of peaked. You're probably peaking at that age. So there's that conversation too. How long of an extension would they give him? Because I wouldn't see them giving him this like 8-year extension or anything. I could see like a 5 or 6 year maybe. Take him till he's like 33, maybe 34. But even then, that might be pushing it, right? Because Houck's a little bit older, it's a little bit of a different situation as well.
Yeah.
Plus, you're the Red Sox.
It's gonna look. Really it's gonna look very unique too.
If
you might have to look at like you. It depends. Like if you, I don't think you approach him mid-year, but I think at the end of the year it's an off-season thing. Yeah. Similar to a lot of things that we'll maybe talk about later, but a lot of things contract-wise, like in a Casas extension or anybody, Houck would look very different because he's going to hit ARB eligibility. And what they could do is give him a 3-year deal. I don't know why that's a tongue twister.
Yeah, like Bo Bichette in the Blue Jays.
Bo Bichette, like, boom, it was like a 3-year, $36 million deal. You can do that with a Tanner Houck. Be like, look, here you go. Here's your arbitration year. This doesn't prevent the idea of having a long-term extension, but here you go. This is what you'd be making, and here we go.
Yeah, and like the thing is too with Houck, if they give him an extension, like I said, I think if it was up to me, I wouldn't go more than 5 years, which means you're only buying out 2 free agent years, right? So the reason I say that is if you buy out 2 free agent years, he'll be 33 at the end of that deal. Yeah. Do you really want to do you want to go past into his age 30, like when he's going to be turning into his? Do you want to go into his age 33 season and when he's turning 34 with him still under contract, especially when he's
here's the other thing. Here's the other
only
issue.
Got this 1 year of being proven, even though it's been a really good year.
I wouldn't go more than 5 because of the whole injuries we're seeing right now.
That too.
If he gets an injury, boom, half of his contract's going to be screwed.
Yeah, well, that's also too part of the reasoning of why you wouldn't give him an extension, actually, more than anything. Because they very well could just arb him, just have him go through the arbitration process. I think they'd like to not have him go to arbitration, but like you just don't give him the extension, just do it year by year, right? Or you do the 3-year deal, just cover all the arb years. But I don't know if Houck's an extension guy because of his age. And I think that's kind of, like I said,
that's probably what like the main like killer was in negotiations. They're like, okay, they used his age and based it off like what he should make. That's probably what happened.
Yeah,
if I had to guess.
Yeah, but also
because I know he was approached. He was approached on a contract extension, but similar to Casas, I don't think he would be fooled to take anything like very much team friendly.
Yeah, well, Whitlock turned 28 on June 11th, right?
That's a little different.
But but Whitlock signed his deal, his extension. He signed it after 21?
21.
Yeah, so he signed it after 21, and that runs through 2028 with club options, right? That's a little bit different. If you look at Tanner Houck and you look at a 5-year deal, that would run through 2029, right? And Whitlock has club options on the end. That's a totally different situation as well. So if he's not doing great, you can always decline the club option and whatever.
Houck's on the edge, or he's on the verge of like, do you give him club options? Would he accept club options?
Exactly. That's the big issue.
I don't know. He's not young.
Well, he's a legitimate Cy Young contender this year. Like, if I'm Tanner Houck, I'm not taking club options on the end. Like, give me guaranteed money. Even if it's a little bit less money, like, I want guaranteed. I could win the Cy Young this year. Like, and if he gets to the end of this year and is a Cy Young finalist, even if he doesn't win it, like, you're looking at that. He's going to have
all the leverage.
Exactly. And that's why when you start to think about it, maybe he's not an extension candidate in terms of you'd love for it, but like I said, he would be 31 anyways when he hits free agency. You have 3 more years of control under him. Is that the smartest thing to give him extra years? Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, you'd love to give him maybe an extra 2, maybe 3 at the most, but
I don't know if there's a world where that gets done though.
And that's what I'm saying. And then you also too, you start looking at you look at like Bayo's extension, and here's the other thing: Brian Bayo, he's only 25, right? So you give Bayo this long-term deal that runs through 2029. Well, Bayo in 2029 is only going to be 30. He only turns 30 in 2029. So, totally different scenario as well, right?
Exactly.
There's kind of this window of when to sign guys, and you kind of have to sign them after like 1-2 years of service at the most. Once you start getting after that, it's almost not worth it to extend them, and it's almost more worth it to wait until after the 4th or 5th season and try and get them locked up then. Or even in Houck's case, maybe even let him get to that 6th year, qualifying offer him, and then, depending on how things go, right? Because you run the risk now of having to pay top dollar in an RB year potentially because he's had such a good season. But at the same time, it's only one season.
Right. And it's like, you don't know what he's going to do next year because arbitration is not what I'm paying you to do. You're getting paid on what you did the previous year.
Yeah. And obviously, it is
that's
somewhat
the biggest misconceptions with contracts.
It's also somewhat scaled though too, because obviously, if you're in first year RB, you're gonna get less than someone in their second year who had the same performance. And
it's obviously when the real money's supposed to come in, but
but that's the thing with Houck. But let's move on from Houck a little bit and Houck extension talk, because we're at the half-hour mark. Do we have anything specifically we want to hit on the Blue Jays series outside of the fact the Red Sox swept them? And then the power was amazing.
They just the Blue Jays, in my opinion, just looked outmatched.
Yeah,
it's wild. Like the Red Sox team has been hovering over 500 for a while to come in and sweep the Blue Jays at Rogers Center. Like, what the heck? That just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, very much so. And this Red Sox team they're on this spot where they kind of, like I said, they've been getting more consistent, and now they're playing well against good teams, and now you put them against bad teams. Hypothetically, by bad, I just mean under 500. I shouldn't say bad, but like teams that are under 500 in Toronto, and now you have Cincinnati coming up, and then Toronto again at Fenway. They have a chance to really make a run at something here over this next week. Considering they've already won 8 of their last 10. The fact that they split that White Sox series is insane looking back at it now. Looking back at it now, that's insane. Considering 2 out of 3 against Philly, 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, sweep the Blue Jays. They split 4 games with the White Sox. That is so insane looking back at
it. It's crazy. They've exposed those bad teams, or good teams. They exposed the Yankees. They exposed the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays in that third game. But no, it's still the Blue Jays made 4 errors in that last game. 4 errors. That Blue Jays team is just awful.
Awful. Yeah.
Like Gausman made it. Like what? No, not Gausman. Sorry, Kiermaier made an error. Like that's how bad they are. That sums up their season. 1 for 15 in runners for scoring position.
Kiermaier made an error. That's how bad they are.
Horwitz is the leadoff hitter for them.
Well, Bichette's been god awful this year. He's hitting like 230.
He's gone. I think a team might buy low.
But are the Blue Jays going to be willing to sell low? That's the issue.
They get the right offer, maybe.
I'm less confident.
Varsho's batting 4th.
That's insane. That's insane.
No one on their team is batting above 280. Qualified guys.
And their pitching hasn't been amazing either. Like that, there's that issue as well. Like Gausman has not been great this year. Like he hasn't been the Kevin Gausman we've seen the last couple of years. Like at all. Gausman this year, 4.24 ERA and 15 starts. I mean, Bassett's been all right. He's been solid. Kikuchi's been solid.
Gausman only had 4 strikeouts.
Barrios has been solid, but like it's. And then like their bullpen, like just like a bunch of Temeza, 5.96
Genesis
ERA.
Cabrera,
Zach 4.40 Zach Pop, 4.95 ERA.
Just kidding, not Aaron Burr.
Nate Pearson, 4.13 ERA. Like Brendan Little, 6.17 ERA. Right, Manoah's injured. Yariel Rodriguez is on the injured list. Bo Bichette's on the injured list. Yimi Garcia is on the injured list. Jordan Romano's on the injured list. Like. It's bad, basically, is what I'm saying. They're in a very rough spot. But it could be the Rays, because the Rays are in a terrible spot too. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
But Yeah. So I think that's a good time. Let's
That
preview
was
this.
our Blue Jays minute, guys.
Yeah.
So,
Let's preview this upcoming Red series.
yeah.
Let's preview the upcoming Red series.
That I was
Friday
going
it's
for.
Cutter Crawford versus Andrew Abbott. Saturday is Nick Pivetta versus Frankie Montas, and then Sunday's to be decided versus to be decided. Seems like it'll be a bullpen game for the Red Sox. Josh Winkowski is listed on Fangraphs as projected to start, but he pitched on
No.
Wednesday and he went 6 innings, meaning he'd only be on 3 days rest, which they would not do that. So Winkowski is not happening. So seemingly bullpen day, probably Chase Anderson or Brad Keller, potentially an opener, and then using one of those as bulk. But we'll see with that. And
We
we don't
we,
know
we
who
didn't talk about King Cooper being optioned.
that. I was going to get to that
Okay.
because of the bullpen game on Sunday. But no, bullpen game on Sunday, and that is because Cooper Criswell was optioned. I almost said Garrett Cooper. Don't mind me. Um, I'm sorry, Cooper Criswell. That's a little bit disrespectful
Wrong,
to you.
King Cooper.
But so the Red Sox, they have an off day Thursday today as we're recording. They have an off day on the 27th. Then on July 1st, they have another off day. Cooper Criswell is eligible to come back July 3rd. If he sticks on schedule, he will pitch July 5th, which, if my memory serves me correctly, that would kind of slot him in a 5 spot in the rotation, kind of, with how the rotation's being set up. Because you're going to have Cutter Crawford going on the Friday, and then you have Pivetta on Saturday. So here's how I think the rotation really is going to roll. Pivetta is your kind of one per se, right? He's your one, like I said, per se, in that sense, because I think they see him as like the veteran or whatnot. Then Houck is their 2, Bayo's the 3, Cutter Crawford's the 4, and then Criswell's going to slot in as the 5 behind Crawford. I think that's kind of how they're going to do it. And I think with how the schedule falls, I think that's actually how it will land if I did my math correctly. So you would roll basically 1 through 5, Pivetta, Houck, Bayo, Crawford, Criswell, and that's probably the way it should be. If you're saying why isn't Houck 1, Pavetta's kind of the veteran experience, kind of that's why, right? And when he gets on a run, we've all seen what he can do when he gets on a run on the mound.
Yep.
So the Cincinnati series, Jason, how many games are the Red Sox taking out of this 3-game set?
I got 2 out of 3. I have the corner games.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2 out of 3 as well. I'm very confident about them going 2 out of 3 because the last 9 series against the Blue Jays with the Red Sox have ended in sweeps, and if they're gonna sweep the Blue Jays, they would have to be on an 11-game winning streak if they sweep Cincinnati as well to sweep the Blue Jays. And I think 11-game winning streak is a little bit out of reach. So I'm going to have them win 2 out of 3.
That would change the whole trajectory of the season.
Yeah. I mean, heck, even going 10-1 in 11 would change the trajectory, right? But I'm a little worried about Pivetta in the middle start because he's been giving up the long ball, and Cincinnati is a bandbox. That's the thing.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to mention that.
Yeah, so like
the long ball's been killing Pivetta.
Yeah, so I'm a little worried about him in Cincinnati because of that field, the dimensions. It's just not built for him. But I still got 2 out of 3, so I'm kind of with you on that. Kind of the first game, last game, kind of. That's how.
Perfect.
Last thing, now we do want to talk. We're gonna skip. We're not gonna do any stat of the week, whatnot. We didn't do player of the week. We'll save that for next week, obviously, because we didn't have our weekend show. But we do want to talk on the Red Sox more. We did some deadline talk our last show. We'll kind of talk, not necessarily deadline. We did kind of a little bit of extension talk, but just in general, Red Sox talk, whether it trades or whatnot. Is this the Red Sox team, obviously? I'm going to ask you this because I have a very clear answer. If the Red Sox have one need, what is it?
One clear need?
Yes. I have a
like,
very
is it
easy
obvious?
Answer. To me, it is.
Right-handed power.
Nope.
Pitching.
Starting pitcher. A starting pitcher.
I was going to say, if anything, the biggest need is going to be a lefty starter, maybe.
I don't even care if it's a lefty, honestly. If the Red Sox were buyers at the deadline, hypothetically, if they were buyers at the deadline, get me a starting pitcher where you can start a series that could maybe not start a series, but put them in the top three of a rotation with Houck and with whether it's Pivetta or Bayo or whoever. Because I'm also thinking wild card series, and I'm thinking, okay, if Houck's your best pitcher and he's your one, Pavetta's probably their two and Bayo's their three. But what if you wanted to slide Pivetta to the bullpen in a wild card series because he's a sicko, right? Because Pavetta's an absolute sicko, right? You could do that, and maybe you have because in a wild card series too, you're only going to carry three starting pitchers on your roster unless you're going to put one of them in your bullpen because it's a 3-game series, right? You don't need more than 3 starters. But like getting in, or you get to the divisional round, you got 5-game series, you want to use 4 starting pitchers. Now you start looking at 4, and your 4 starters Cutter Crawford, and this is not a shot against Cutter Crawford, but I'd like a little bit better than Cutter Crawford in my rotation. 1 and 2. They could use if they can get a very nice starter even if it's a rental. Like I think it doesn't even necessarily have to be a rental. It could be something where maybe there's a team with an excess of starting pitching that's in a playoff push, but they need a power bat. I love Tyler O'Neill right now, but would I be willing to trade him if the price is right? Yeah, because I don't necessarily need. I mean, he's a great piece to have. Do not get me wrong, but you start looking at this Red Sox lineup if everyone's healthy. And that's a massive if. Don't get me wrong. It's a massive if. But you're looking at Duran, Hamilton, potentially probably being the 1-2, and then you roll with Casas and Devers 3-4. It's a lot of lefties, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of lefties. I'll get to that in a second. And then you still have Abreu, you still have Connor Wong, you still have the DH spot, whether that's going to be, heck, maybe that will be Tyler O'Neill, maybe not, maybe it's Yoshida. You still have Rafaelo, who's going to stick in the 9th spot, and then you have your second base, whether it's Valdez or a healthy Vaughn Grissom. I would assume that's probably going to be a platoon at second base, right?
Yeah.
So you start looking at the lineup and you go, unless you're going to bench Yoshida, where does Tyler O'Neill play? Because, yes, Tyler O'Neill could DH, could bench Yoshida, but if it was up to me, I think Yoshida still can turn things around. I mean, it's been rough, don't get me wrong, but I still have faith in him.
He's been unfreaking lucky too.
That too. And I still have faith in Yoshida. And Tyler O'Neill, my worry with him is he at the drop of a fly, he could get injured, and that's a little scary. Might he hit 35 home runs this year? Maybe. He's got 15 in he's got 15 in 50 games that he's played. So yeah, he very well could hit a bunch of homers. Don't get me wrong. He could definitely be a 30 home run guy this year, but I don't know. It's just it is a little bit excess too because you also have Rob Refsnyder and how many outfielders do you really need? I mean, it's not bad to keep him around because he's depth, right? But I don't see a world where Tyler O'Neill's on this team next year. I don't. And so that kind of brings into question, do you trade Tyler O'Neill? I don't think they would just sell on Tyler O'Neill necessarily. Or maybe you bring in prospects for O'Neill and then you flip other prospects, and you go get a pitcher or something.
I don't know. It's really a question of, do you believe in this team? And
exactly.
if the front office is no, we don't, because I feel like they're very adamant, we got to take one path or another. Then it's
yes, but at the same time,
you got to evaluate. No, you got to evaluate whether is this sustainable? Are they getting a little bit of luck, and are they really fooling us? Because if we're gonna get fool's gold again, if we're gonna get faked out like we have the past 2 seasons, then what are we doing? Then sell. If this front office, and that's fine by me. If the front office comes out and says they probably won't, they're yeah, we just didn't feel confident in this team can make a full run and turn things around, and
or I don't think they'd say something about the future of the team and how we decided that long-term success was greater than going in on one season. That they'll say something along those lines. Here's the thing, but at the same time, I'm kind of sold now on keeping Kenley. and even Chris Martin. But like, I think O'Neal's the one guy that you could get away with trading if the package is right, if what you get for him is the right fit, right? That's the big caveat in it. What you get for him has to be the right fit.
Can
But
you
I
get a
don't.
return bigger than Victor Santos and Nick Robertson?
Yeah. Oh no, I think you definitely can with how he's played.
So then
right?
do it. You could do that
but also
and get a better return for what you got.
And because they have the outfielders, and they could sell Tyler O'Neill, but still bring in a starting pitcher, right? Is it kind of the buying and selling thing that people hate? Yes, but like they very well. That's like the one guy. Even if they buy, they could get away with trading Tyler O'Neill, right? And I'm not saying they would, because having that extra depth is never a bad thing to have. Do not get me wrong, but it's just that thing of like, because I know we had like Romy playing some outfield and Dahlbeck was playing outfield. But so you always have to be careful with injuries.
Yeah.
And maybe Rafael might be needed in the infield later. You never know what could happen, right?
Injuries are unpredictable, and
exactly. But at the same time, if O'Neal's not in their long-term plans and they think long-term sustainability is more important even now, yeah, you could still trade Tyler O'Neill, even if you still want to bring in a couple pieces.
Stupid question. Is he worth the QO right now?
No, because I think he just accepts it. And I ain't trying to pay Tyler O'Neill that much money.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I'm paying it, but you get the point. Like, I don't want to see the Red Sox pay him that much money. Like, at all.
Yeah, O'Neal's weird.
And like, there are teams that could use an outfielder, too. That's the thing, right? There are definitely teams that could use him. And I think that's the big thing for me. Like, you look at Tyler O'Neill, and you look at the kind of the outfield market, you look at, like, the deadline, and, like, how many outfielders are really going to be available? Like, I could see Seattle needing an outfielder, and not that Seattle's going to give up an arm and a leg for Tyler O'Neill, but, like, you could maybe swing some sort of package with Tyler O'Neill and maybe a prospect and bring in a pitcher, a young pitcher maybe. Maybe, I'm not saying that you would, but you never know, right? As much as, like, I don't know, maybe Cleveland wants an outfielder. I don't know. I'm just hypothetically, right? You look in the National League. I mean, there's been talk about Philly wanting an outfielder. You know, if the Philly hates their prospects and they want to offer you like a Mick Abel, I don't like Mick Abel that much, but you know what? For Tyler O'Neill, I wouldn't turn that down.
There's one issue I have with that. Well, actually, it's not that big of an issue. But Abel's Rule 5 eligible.
Yeah, but you wouldn't turn that.
But you wouldn't turn it down.
That's if you get an offer for Tyler O'Neill that's too good to pass up, you don't pass up on it, and that's more the point I'm making. You don't trade him for the sake of trading.
You gotta take calls on a lot of people.
Yeah, on O'Neill especially.
O'Neill, I would go as far as to say take calls on Duran. Would you move him? Definitely not. That's an off-season move if you were to think about it.
Unless the team wants to overpay out, like, you know.
But you look for to see if you can get a deal that the Red Sox can refuse. Like, especially if someone's offering maybe a potential like Cy Young candidate.
Or you lay like the groundwork for like a deal in the offseason.
Right.
Because Jarren Duran might be the Red Sox most valuable piece right now.
Yeah.
Because they're not trading Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teal. They're not trading any of those guys, right? Jarren Duran might be the Red Sox most valuable trade chip because they're also not going to trade Tristan Casas. We know that. And Duran is, I think he turns 28 this year. Yeah, he turns 28 this year.
He's getting older.
Yeah, he turns 28 in September 5th, right? And Duran, after this year, will still have 4 years of control left, right? Duran's not an extension guy because like he'll be 28 next year. And then so his 4 years will be 28, 29, 30, 31. You're not like, unless you're giving him like similar, if you're only buying out like 2 free agent years with him, maybe it makes sense, but he's not getting some like super long-term deal, right? So Duran's is interesting because of that, right? And you look at Duran and you have Rafael in center. You have Abreu in right. Rev Snyder's been really good this year, and he's hit righties this year as well when he's played. You have, obviously, Tyler O'Neill's leaving. But like hypothetically, if Duran were to get traded at the deadline, I doubt it, you could hang on to Tyler O'Neill, right? You have Roman Anthony banging, like he's going to be banging on the door sometime next year, right? And he's been tearing the living cover off of baseball since the start of May. And when I say that, he's got like a 170 weighted runs created plus since like the beginning of May. He's been tearing the living cover off of the baseballs, right? You have Matthew Lugo in AAA, who I know he had a little bit of a skid the last like week and a half or so, but he had a hit tonight as we were recording, and Nick York's been getting some time in the outfield. Vaughn Grissom has got some time in the outfield with the Braves. Maybe they play him a couple games in the outfield needed, right? And this I'm talking about like next year, right? So they definitely have the option to move up. Yoshida, I know they've stuck with Yoshida as a DH this year, but maybe next year they want to start the year with him in left field, depending on what happens, right? And so with that sense, like, yeah, I could see Duran getting moved. Almost akin to the Rays moving Willy Adames when Wander Franco was clearly big league ready, but they wanted to give him time. The only thing was the Rays waited a month into the season, which probably hampered their return a little bit.
Yeah.
But the Rays got what they wanted. They wanted Drew Rasmussen. You know why I know they wanted Drew Rasmussen?
Because they drafted him and he
didn't sign. And they drafted him in 2017. He didn't sign, and then 2018 the Brewers took him. That's how I know they wanted Rasmussen, right? So in this sense with Jerry Duran, the Red Sox very well. Maybe they don't trade Duran now, but maybe they start lining up what a potential trade could look like if they do end up moving off of him on the offseason. And when I say moving off him, they're going to get a very good return in a Jarren Duran trade. A very, very good return. They could flip Jarren Duran to a team like Seattle and bring in a pitcher. Seattle could very well stick Duran in left field, run that with J-Rod at the top of the lineup, and Seattle's got pitching. Very interesting pitching that I'm sure, like, if the Red Sox offer them Jarren Duran, they might be willing to give a Logan Gilbert up. Right?
Yeah, I mean, look.
I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you never know.
It's not
right?
going to happen. I'm sorry. What I mean is, we don't know if it's going to happen. We don't know if it's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm saying with like Duran. Duran's obviously off-season move, but like it's not totally out of like reach that like Duran could be traded this offseason. At the deadline, I don't see it at all. Right? Not at all. That's too much of like a vibe killer at the deadline.
100%.
But like I said, in the offseason,
groundwork.
Like I could see it if the return is right, and that return would have to be headlined by pitching. Absolutely. What about maybe the Giants? Right? Maybe the Giants are looking. Maybe Kyle Harrison is available. Right? That's a lefty starter, young, solid. Hasn't been
Bailey
amazing.
worked with him.
Exactly. Bailey's familiar with him. Hasn't been amazing this year in the big leagues, but he's been solid. 3.96 ERA, 3.96 FIP, 4.06 ERA. He's been solid, right? And Kyle Harrison, he doesn't turn 23 till August, right? And that's a guy you would have for 5 more years after this year, right? And so maybe your return's headlined by a Kyle Harrison. If you trade him to like a San Francisco, and then San Francisco, they can very well start looking at their outfield, and you slide Duran into left, you have Zhang Huli in center, and then you have like a Heliot Ramos who can play right field. I think Michael Conforto's contract is up after this year, if I'm correct on that. Yes, it is up after this year. Yastrzemski can be a backup outfielder. Jorge Soler, I know he's under contract there, but he's a DH. Let's be honest. He's a DH. So, that's a very viable candidate, but that's not going to happen in season, right? So just a Jarren Duran trade's not totally out of proportion.
It's not out of the question. It's a matter of do they get a deal they can't refuse?
Exactly,
or
and I don't.
Is it going to lay the groundwork of what's going to happen?
I think
in the offseason
that would be the case. I think that would be the case in that,
and that's half the reason you do take calls on people.
Exactly.
So then you revisit in the offseason and say, "Hey, we talked about this in the deadline. We'd like to talk about it again and hopefully strike a deal." Boom.
Yeah,
that's why you do that.
And also too, it doesn't mean teams can't talk after the deadline too.
Correct.
They very well can still talk.
They can't trade.
They can't trade,
they can't trade, but they can talk.
Exactly. So Craig Breslow could call up what's it Fairhand what's his last name?
Of what team?
The Giants.
Oh, it's
Uh, it, oh my god, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on his last name. Unfortunately, and I feel dumb because it is Farhan Zaidi. That's what it is.
Zaidi. Yeah.
Yeah, they can Craig Breslow could
Why
very
did
well
they say
call him up.
Bobby Evans? What?
Zaidi's their president of baseball ops.
Yeah.
GM. But Craig Breslow could very well call him up in the beginning of September, and they can talk. It doesn't mean they can very well agree to a trade in like the middle of September, wait till the season's over, and then make that trade, right? Like it doesn't mean teams can't talk. Typically, they're not going to probably talk in September because it doesn't necessarily make sense because you can't do anything. But you can very well lay groundwork for something, and even in like September, right? So, but that's why you take calls on people, right? That doesn't mean the Red Sox are taking calls on Jarren Duran. Doesn't mean they're trading, or I shouldn't even say that. It's not the Red Sox are taking calls on. They're not asking, "Hey, come call about Jarren Duran." But if someone calls them and asks about Jarren Duran, they're not going to hang up the phone. That's more so what I mean. Tristan Casas, hang up the phone. Rafael Devers, hang up the phone. Tanner Houck, hang up the phone. Jarren Duran, maybe I'll listen.
Yep. Absolutely. I second everything you say. Perfect.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing we probably should talk about too. I don't know if you realize this. Take a guess at what percentage Kenley Jansen has thrown his cutter this year. Take a guess.
85.
It is not 85. I'll give you reference. So the reference is in 2023 he threw it 79% of the time. In 2022 it was 65%. In 2021 it was 58%. The highest he's thrown it in his career was back in 2012 when he threw it 91.4% of the time.
So it's not 85. It's maybe 89.
That's close. He's thrown it 90.3% of the time this year. Kenley Jansen.
And he hasn't thrown it as fast as he did last season.
That's 92 this year, which
he was reaching 96 last year.
But that's more in line with his 2022, 2021 cutter. And 2020 and 2019, it was actually slower. It was down to 91 in 2020. But that's more in line with his 2022 numbers in terms of velocity. But the reason I bring it up, right? So Kenley's throwing 90.3% of cutters. It's the most he's thrown his cutter since literally 2012, which was the year he threw it the most in his career. And I highlight that because this year, the percentage sounds crazy, but when you actually put it into the amount of pitches thrown, Kenley Jansen has thrown 382 pitches this year, right? Out of 382 pitches, 345 of them are cutters. Have been cutters.
That's insane.
And if you want to be crazy, 5.2% of those pitches are classified as sinkers, which a sinker very well could just be a cutter that he messed up on.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right.
So there's a chance he's tried to throw a cutter like 95% of the time. So basically, Kenley Jansen's saying, here it is, good luck. And people still can't hit it. And that's why the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, ooh, maybe you do keep Kenley. Just because he's had his moments at times, like with command and whatnot, but like the hitter still can't hit the ball. The only time he gets into issues is when he lets guys get on base, when he walks guys or hits someone. Because hitters still aren't hitting his cutter. It's all command with him. Realistically. That's really all it is. Because if you look at his cutter and his heat map, the heat map is middle of the zone, middle, and people can't hit it.
Yeah.
So if he throws it in the zone, people can't hit it. I needed to bring that last thing up. Anything else before we wrap up, Jason?
I got nothing. I think we discussed everything, and can't wait.
Yeah, shout out Justin Slayton as well.
best pitcher on the Red Sox.
All right. Great way to wrap it up. So for Jason, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to the Family Focus. This is episode 25 of the Family Focus. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on an actual weekend show.
Yeah. Peace.